So you know what you guys do when he gets in here? Pat him on the back, say congratulations, enjoy it, and tell him not to serve fried chicken next year. Got it. Right.
It's been Arnold. Arnold's probably the toughest to play with of the three.
Why?
I think it's the people who follow Arnold Palmer. Now, Jack is very easy to play with. He does talk. I mean, even though the people on TV don't see him doing that.
Fuzzy Zoeller didn't just play golf, he exposed it. While everyone else was treating the sport like some sacred ritual, Zoeller was out there whistling down fairways, waving white towels, and calling out the phonies who made the game miserable to watch. He couldn't stand the robots grinding over every shot, the intimidators hiding behind their brands, or the stuffed shirts who thought golf was too good for regular people. And for a while, that made him a hero. But when he tried to expose Tiger Woods in 1997, everything backflipped. The jokester became the villain, and the man who spent his career calling people out got called out himself in the worst way possible. Let's start with Tom Watson, because if you want to understand what Fuzzy Zoeller hated about modern golf, Watson was patient zero. This was the late 70s, and Watson had become the new king after Jack Nicklaus started fading. Watson was brilliant, no doubt about it, but he turned golf into homework. Every shot was a math problem. Every putt required a dissertation. He conquered courses through sheer mental torture, grinding them into submission like he was trying to punish the grass itself. Zoeller looked at that approach and saw everything wrong with where the sport was heading. Zoeller had a different philosophy entirely. He famously said, "I realize I'm not a machine." That was a direct shot at Watson and everyone like him. While Watson was out there thinking a million calculated thoughts, Zoeller joked that a million thoughts went through his mind too. What little mind he had. He wasn't trying to conquer his brain. He was trying to ignore it. Watson got compared to Huckleberry Finn because of his gap-toothed smile, but there was nothing playful about how he approached competition. Meanwhile, Zoeller was actually living like Huck Finn, floating down the fairway with a cigarette and a vodka tonic, treating major championships like a good time that just happened to have a trophy attached. The clash between these two philosophies exploded at the 1979 Masters. Context matters here. Nobody had won the Masters on their first try since Gene Sarazen in 1935. That's 44 years of the golf world deciding you needed experience to handle Augusta National's pressure. Watson was the defending champion from 1977 and the heavy favorite. He had the pedigree, the strategic mind, the whole package. Zoeller was the rookie who seemed way too loose for the moment. Then Ed Snead collapsed on the final day, missing par putts on 16, 17, and 18. Suddenly we had the first sudden death playoff in Masters history, and it was Watson, Snead, and Zoeller standing on the 10th tee. Watson carried the weight of expectation like he always did. Snead was broken from his meltdown. Zoeller looked like he was about to order another drink. They all made par on 10. Then came the 11th hole, one of the most dangerous in golf, and Zoeller faced a 6-foot birdie putt to win the whole thing. He didn't stand over it forever like Watson would have. He didn't treat it like defusing a bomb. He just hit it with rhythm, and when the ball dropped, Zoeller flung his putter into the air like a kid who just won a carnival game. That moment shattered everything Augusta National stood for. The quiet cathedral of golf just watched a rookie beat their cerebral golden boy by refusing to take any of it seriously. Zoeller proved you didn't need to suffer to win. You could whistle, joke, play fast, and still beat the greatest thinking golfer on the most intimidating course in America. For Zoeller, that victory validated everything he believed. Watson and the other grinders were killing the entertainment value. They treated the gallery like furniture to ignore instead of people paying to watch a show. Zoeller famously said every shot makes someone happy, recognizing that professional golf was supposed to be fun to watch. He mocked the indistinguishability of serious players, joking that Lanny Wadkins and Tom Watson all blurred together into the same boring package. To Zoeller, Watson's conquest of the mind was pointless if it stripped the soul out of the game. What good was perfection if nobody wanted to watch you achieve it? Now let's talk about Greg Norman, because if Watson represented the old guard of American grinding, Norman was the new breed of corporate athlete. The great white shark was everything Zoeller wasn't. Physically intimidating, aggressively branded, played with swagger that crossed into arrogance. Norman wanted to dominate you psychologically before the first tee shot. Zoeller looked at all that intensity and saw a performance hiding vulnerability. While Norman projected invincibility, Zoeller projected fallibility, saying he wasn't a great player, but he was a damn good one. That contrast exploded at the 1984 US Open at Winged Foot. The final round became famous for one image: Fuzzy Zoeller waving a white towel at Greg Norman. Here's what actually happened. Norman was playing in the group ahead, and on 18 he holed this miraculous 40-foot par putt. The gallery erupted. Zoeller, standing back in the fairway, heard the explosion and assumed Norman had made birdie to take the lead. Thinking he'd been beaten, Zoeller pulled out a white towel and waved it in mock surrender. Except Norman hadn't made birdie. He'd only saved par. Zoeller later admitted the moment was way more embarrassing than anyone remembers, because he'd basically surrendered to someone who hadn't actually won. But that gesture did something brilliant. It disarmed Norman completely. Here was the shark, trying to intimidate everyone with his intensity, and Zoeller was treating the US Open like a Sunday afternoon joke. He signaled he wasn't scared. More importantly, he showed the crowd he was having fun while Norman was busy taking himself too seriously. The towel became the headline, but the real exposure came the next day in the 18-hole playoff. If Norman thrived on pressure and intimidation, the playoff should have been his moment to devour the Joker. Instead, Zoeller destroyed him, shot a 67 while Norman fell apart to 75. That's an 8-stroke demolition in a US Open playoff. It wasn't just a victory, it was a complete repudiation of everything Norman represented. Zoeller proved that all that branding, all that swagger, all that psychological warfare meant nothing against someone who refused to play the intimidation game. By not taking Norman seriously, Zoeller neutralized his greatest weapon. Norman was brittle under pressure when facing someone who wouldn't engage in the mental battle. Zoeller later joked he regretted giving away the now famous towel. One final dig at the fact that he was the one holding the trophy, while Norman went home empty. Before we continue, I want to hear from you. Do you think Zoeller's approach would work in today's ultra-serious golf world? Or was he the last of a dying breed? Drop your thoughts in the comments. And if you're enjoying this breakdown of golf's most controversial personality, go ahead and subscribe. We're just getting started with how Fuzzy exposed the sport's biggest problems. Beyond specific rivals, Zoeller had a burning hatred for an entire category of golfer. The slow players, the plotters, the guys who treated every shot like bomb disposal. To Zoeller, slow play wasn't just annoying. It was a sin against entertainment itself. He believed overanalysis paralyzed athleticism and drove paying customers away from the sport. His philosophy was simple: miss it quick. Better to hit a bad shot with rhythm than agonize for 5 minutes and still hit it badly anyway. This put him at war with players like Tom Kite, who Zoeller viewed as the embodiment of everything wrong with pace of play. Observers noted Kite's ancient tanned leather neck, while Zoeller waited in the fairway, reinforcing the image of talent being held hostage by grinding. Later in his career, commentators would cite Zoeller's philosophy as the opposite of players like Kevin Na, whose inability to pull the trigger caused massive delays and controversy. Zoeller's point was that these guys were selfish. They put their own neuroticism above everyone else's experience. But Zoeller didn't just blame the players. He went after the course designers too, especially Pete Dye. Zoeller aligned with the sentiment that Pete Dye ought to be fined for slow play himself. The logic was brutal but sound. Dye's courses, like TPC Sawgrass and the Stadium course, were built on visual intimidation, excessive hazards, and severe penalties. That design philosophy forced players into defensive shells. They became terrified of mistakes, which made them play slower, which turned golf from a flowing sport into a stuttering mess of stops and starts. Zoeller argued this was bad design because it killed the rhythm that made golf watchable. To Zoeller, professional golfers had a responsibility to the gallery. Every shot makes someone happy, he said, but nobody was happy watching someone read a green for 3 minutes. The plotters were stealing time from everyone. They were treating their personal comfort as more important than the collective experience of the tournament. Zoeller's fast play was a rebellion against that selfishness. He respected the audience's time as much as his own score, and he exposed slow players as self-absorbed cowards too scared to trust their instincts. Then there were the stuffed shirts, the administrators, the country club elitists, the players who carried themselves like golf was too sophisticated for normal people. Despite playing a sport drenched in aristocracy and exclusion, Zoeller built his entire brand on being the regular guy in a rich man's world. He used humor as a weapon in this class warfare, and he was ruthless about it. Zoeller positioned himself as the working man who happened to be good at golf. He'd say things like, "I'm glad I don't have to make a living farming." That quote did two things. It acknowledged his privilege in getting paid to play a game, but it also aligned him with farmers and laborers instead of the CEOs and bankers who usually populated pro-am events. After his playing career, he launched Fuzzy's ultra-premium vodka with the slogan, "Golf, vodka, fun." It wasn't a luxury product. It was bar-level vodka that stripped away all the pretense. He wanted to be associated with the 19th hole, the democratic clubhouse bar, not the exclusive boardroom. But the real war was about silence. Traditional golf demands absolute quiet. Marshals shushed the crowd like librarians. Zoeller found this oppressive and ridiculous. He complained that there were days he could hear men tying their shoelaces in the gallery. He hated the self-important volunteers policing noise. So he whistled loudly down every fairway. That whistling was an act of desecration against the church-like atmosphere the establishment tried to enforce. He was signaling that golf was just a game, exposing the USGA and Augusta National's green jackets as absurdly self-serious. The fans loved him for it because he felt like one of them, a guy who just happened to be great at golf instead of someone who thought being great at golf made him better than everyone else. This everyman persona made Zoeller beloved, but that same persona, the unfiltered good old boy toy joker led directly to his downfall when it crashed into the changing world of the 90s. And that brings us to Tiger Woods and the moment Fuzzy Zoeller accidentally exposed himself instead of anyone else. April 1997. Tiger Woods was destroying Augusta National. He was 21 years old, mixed race, and winning by 12 strokes. He represented the future of golf. Athletic, diverse, deadly serious about competition. Fuzzy Zoeller, the 1979 champion, represented the past. White, jovial, rooted in the locker room culture of the 70s, where everything was supposedly just banter between the guys. After finishing his round, Zoeller stood under the famous oak tree at Augusta, drink in hand, the picture of the old guard at leisure. When reporters asked about Woods, Zoeller launched into what he clearly thought was harmless ribbing. He said, "That little boy is driving well and he's putting well. He's doing everything it takes to win. So you know what you guys do when he gets in here? You pat him on the back and say congratulations and enjoy it and tell him not to serve fried chicken next year, got it?" Then Zoeller walked away, snapped his fingers, turned back and added, "Or collard greens or whatever the hell they serve." Let's break down why this was catastrophic. First, calling Tiger Woods a little boy. In the American South, calling a black man boy carries violent historical weight. It's infantilization used as subjugation for centuries. Even if Zoeller meant it about Tiger's age, the racial context made it indefensible. Second, reducing the first black golfer to dominate a major championship to stereotypes about soul food stripped Woods of his individuality. The comments were supposedly about the champion's dinner tradition, where the winner picks the menu, but weaponizing fried chicken and collard greens as a punchline turned it into a racial caricature. The fallout permanently altered Zoeller's career. Kmart and Dunlop, major sponsors who'd capitalized on his everyman image, dropped him immediately. They recognized the everyman had become the bigot in public perception. Tiger Woods was busy taping Oprah and didn't respond for 2 weeks. When he finally called the remarks unfortunate and accepted the apology, the delay had let the wound fester into something career-defining. Zoeller tried defending himself, saying he was making fun of the champion's dinner and that he'd served fast food hamburgers when he hosted. But that defense meant nothing against the specificity of collard greens. Here's the deeper truth. Zoeller thought he was doing a hazing ritual, the veteran ribbing the rookie like always happened in the locker room. But he exposed the insularity and toxicity of that whole culture. He revealed that the humor holding the tour together was built on exclusion. He accidentally demonstrated exactly why Tiger's victory mattered so much. The establishment Woods was entering considered fried chicken jokes acceptable banter from past champions. The good old boy charm Zoeller built his career on had a racist underbelly, and he'd just shown it to the world on camera. Zoeller later admitted the incident haunted him the rest of his career. He received death threats. His reputation carried a permanent stain. When he died in November 2025 at 74, the Guardian headline read, "Fuzzy Zoeller, two-time major winner, haunted by racist Tiger Woods joke, dies aged 74. The joke had become the first line of his obituary, eclipsing the 1979 Masters and the 1984 U.S. Open entirely. Everything he'd accomplished, every rival he'd beaten, every pompous institution he'd mocked, all of it got buried under one moment of catastrophic judgment. And that's the tragic arc of Fuzzy Zoeller. He spent his career exposing others. He exposed Tom Watson as a joyless machine and proved fun could win majors. He exposed Greg Norman as a brittle intimidator and crushed him with a smile. He exposed slow players as selfish time thieves. He exposed stuffed shirts as pretentious frauds who forgot golf was supposed to be entertaining. But when he tried exposing Tiger Woods as just another rookie to haze, he exposed himself instead. He exposed the limits of his worldview, the toxicity hiding inside the locker room culture he represented, and the fact that his good old boy charm wasn't charming at all when it crossed into racism. Zoeller won 10 PGA Tour events and 2 majors by refusing to be a machine. He remained a damn good player despite back injuries he joked about treating with vodka, which he admitted didn't actually ease back pain. He won the USGA Bob Jones Award for Sportsmanship in 1985, an honor that became deeply ironic after 1997. In his final years, he played the PNC Championship with his daughter Gretchen, showing a softer side of the jokester. But none of that could erase what happened under the oak tree at Augusta. So here's the question we're left with. Was Fuzzy Zoeller a rebel who made golf more fun and exposed its worst qualities? Or was he part of the problem the whole time, hiding prejudice behind humor until the mask slipped? Maybe he was both, a genuinely talented golfer who loved the game enough to fight its pretensions, but who never understood that some of those pretensions existed for good reasons. A man who whistled while he worked until the world changed the tune and left him holding nothing but regrets. What do you think defined Fuzzy Zoeller's legacy more? His victories over Watson and Norman, or the comments that haunted the rest of his life? Let me know in the comments below. And if this deep dive into golf's most controversial figure got you thinking, hit subscribe. The sport's full of complex characters, and we're just getting started unpacking their stories.